everyone. Welcome to At Home with Sally. I'm Sally Clarkson, and I have the biggest privilege in the world to be with so many friends from all over the world who join me every week to listen to my stories, inspiration, biblical encouragement, and I am just so glad that you're here today. Thanks so much for joining me. Hello, my friends. I'm so glad that you joined me tonight. I just have the most wonderful, wonderful podcast for you. And I think this is the time of year when it will mean a lot to you. You know, I have spent so many years cultivating traditions and building routines and rhythms for my family, but sometimes I need some new ideas. I've always said the best woman is the woman who copies wise people. And so tonight, I have invited two very dear friends to be with me to tell you about this wonderful new book that is going to inspire you and also just give you fresh ideas of how to cultivate really warm friendships, how to cultivate the environment where literally the glory, the sparkle, the dimension, the love, the beauty of the Christ child coming into our world is going to be enhanced by the things that you practice and all of the ways that you add creativity to your home this time of the year. So I want to introduce my friends. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you all about themselves. And then I'm going to ask them if they can remember when we met each other. So here we are.
Well, I'll begin. I'm Lanier Ivester, and I live in Georgia with my husband Philip and a menagerie of barn animals and dogs. And I've been.
And it's true. She really does.
And a peacock. I have a peacock.
Wow. Just one?
Just one. I had two, but his brother passed away.
Oh.
So of old age. But yes, I have been writing since I was 8 years old. It's always been a passion of mine. And I have just published my first book, Glad and Golden Hours.
Yeah, I was going to say the name of it.
Yeah,
Glad and Golden Hours.
Upon which I collaborated with my very dear friend Jennifer Trafton. So I'll let her introduce herself.
All right. Hi there. I'm Jennifer Trafton, and somebody just asked me, when did you start being an artist? Because I illustrated this book. I said,
it's beautiful illustrations. You can't even imagine the illustrations, but keep going. We won't interrupt you except five more times.
It's like when I was able to hold a crayon. I don't remember ever in my life not drawing. I was an artist long before I was a writer. But I guess I'm both now. It took me a long time to say I was an artist.
Oh my goodness, you are.
But
I didn't know that you were all these years.
Well, I kind of hid it, I was really shy about it. But I am the author of a couple of children's books, and I've been involved with the Rabbit Room for 15 years. I met my husband at the first Hutch Meet along with Lanier.
Yeah, and Sarah was there,
Sarah,
I think. Sarah, my daughter.
Yeah, that's how I think I met you, is through Sarah. And it has just been a complete joy to get to collaborate with Lanier on this book.
Well, it's amazing. I heard about this book being formed years ago. Yeah. And I have to tell you, these are some of the most creative, lovely soulmates that I know. And so that's why it's a privilege to be able to be with them. We did meet, for those of you who don't have any idea of what we're talking about, Rabbit Room or Hutch Moot. So could one of you all, or both of you all, say, what is it and why did we meet there and why did we immediately have a connection?
Oh, well, your husband named it.
Actually, Clay did name it in a Panera's, of all the places you can be inspired.
He came up with the idea of Hutch Moot. I guess I should define the Rabbit Room, although it should be Pete, my husband. As some of you might know, that C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and their friends, they called themselves the Inklings. A group of them would meet at a pub called the Eagle and Child, and sometimes in one of their rooms at the University of Oxford, and they would share their writings with each other. And they were friends for many years, and the the Narnia Chronicles and the Lord of the Rings and many other things came out of that friendship and that collaboration. And so the Rabbit Room was the room in this pub where they would meet and they would talk every week. So the Rabbit Room organization was inspired by.
So they actually called it the Rabbit Room. I forgot that.
Room. There is a
I've been there a million
door.
times, of course. Yeah.
It's called the Rabbit Room. So the Rabbit Room organization is inspired by that, and I think the line we like to say is that community nourishes art, and art nourishes community. So it is a nonprofit organization, not just for artists, but for building community and for building spiritual formation through the arts, through story and art and music. And every year for the past 15 years, we have had an annual conference in Nashville, Tennessee, where we live, called Hutchmoot. And it is very hard to define. It's a conference for everybody.
Well, it's for all of you who sometimes sit in your home and think, I am different than everyone else. And I have ideas and words come to my mind, or a painting or music. And it's a place for you to go, because I feel like there's this kinship between the God blessed people who their personality has that desire to speak, to talk, to explain, to make beautiful. And so it's really fun because everyone is either there because they love that or because they want to be involved in it. So
the refrain you often hear is, I don't know why I'm here, but I knew I had to come.
Yeah. So true.
We've actually been having a hutch
We've been hutch-mooting
the past 3 days, and so we are at the tail end of it today. And today was the day when people got to share what it meant to them, and that was really just emotional for me. It is every year, but so many people come, as you say, not really knowing why, and feeling like they don't belong anywhere, and they come and they find people who are like them finally, and who love the same things.
And every single session is about something to do with an artist or a musician or writing or how to do it or how to do it better or whatever. And of course, the family who started this are the Petersons.
Yes. So Pete and Andrew Peterson are brothers, and both of them are authors. And it was Andrew who visited the Rabbit Room many, many years ago and had this idea of bringing something like that back to Nashville, just amongst his own friends. And so it started just a circle of friends who wanted to share their art with each other, to support each other, and it has now grown into a thriving community, not just in Nashville, but online and through these conferences. And yes, I met Pete at the first Hutchmoot.
Her husband.
And we are now married. And so I have been very Rabbit Room adjacent for the past 50
Well,
years.
and it spawned this incredible publishing house. I mean, they have created the most beautiful, predictably beautiful, and deep books. And that's what Glad and Golden Hours is. And so, and these two, didn't you meet at Hutchmoot?
We met at the first Hutchmoot.
Yes. At the lunch table.
Oh my goodness. Wow,
yes.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that community spawns creativity, and community spawns friendship, and those kind of things we long for. So quickly, because we can't do this for 5 hours. We can only do it for 1 hour. Tell just a tiniest little bit about your friendship, and then how you became collaborators together, because I think that a part of the spark of your friendship is that you all have soulmates. You found soulmates with each other. And so tell just a little tiny bit about that, because it's my hope that on this podcast, you won't just hear about these wonderful things that our friends have accomplished, but that you might get an idea of, oh my goodness, I would do something like this in my home or in my community, or I want to be a part of something like this. So tell just a tiny bit.
Yeah, well, I'll start and then I'll hand it off to you, Jennifer. But the story behind the book is dear to me as a lot of the stories in the book. But like we said, Jennifer and I met at the first Hutchmoot, and we just knew immediately that we were kindred spirits. And I think at that Hutchmoot, we might have even planned for you to come and visit me in Atlanta.
I think so.
Which you did.
So they don't even live in the same place.
Right. She lives in
no.
Nashville. I live in Atlanta. But we just really connected. And Jennifer, we've visited back and forth. Of course, we see each other at the Rabbit Room events. We've presented a lot of sessions together and worked on sessions and worked through things that we were struggling with in our lives to present, to come out on the other end and present these sessions together. And so, we just really, in a lot of ways, we're very different, and in a lot of ways, our core central values are so in sync with each other.
You're kind of like dance partners. I mean, what I mean is you're in sync, but you both have a different thing that you accomplish, or a different thing that you bring to the table.
I absolutely love presenting a Hutchmute session with Jennifer because I just feel like she always brings the perfect counterpart to what I'm trying to say. And when I'm presenting a session or working on something, I realize, I can't say everything on this subject, and I don't know everything on the subject. But Jennifer just always seems to balance it out and pull things out of me, and I don't know, it's just a really fun chemistry. But
I love it because you all aren't cookie cutter. In other words, they both have these very unique and very different personalities, but they're alike in principle. Mm-hmm. They're alike in the golden nuggets that they have shared with you. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times people have said, Sally, is the only thing you do is drink a cup of tea all day long? And somebody will say, I love coffee, or I don't like tea, or whatever. And no, these two come at this with different perspectives, different personalities, a different application of beauty, a unique application of beauty, but they collaborate so well because they agree so much on the truth and the virtue of what they've accomplished. So tell me, I really think so. I mean, I love it that you all are different in your personality, and that's so affirmed, because I want everybody to know their puzzle is their puzzle, and yet into their life puzzle, they can bring beauty in a unique sort of way. Yeah. And also, I think the holiday season can be so busy and so fraught with activity, but I want you to tell me, what is a glad and golden hour? And then tell me what is inside of this book.
Okay, so the title of the book is Glad and Golden Hours, a companion for Advent and Christmastide. And the title comes from a phrase it's embedded in a very familiar Christmas carol. It's a verse that you rarely hear it came up in the Midnight Clear.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. And Jennifer did this beautiful frontispiece for the book. Oh my gosh, I wish y'all could see it.
It's so gorgeous, this book is. You just, even if you just get it to read it and look at it, it will bring great
so gorgeous.
Solace to your soul.
But she did the frontispiece. She illuminated that verse from that carol, and if it's okay, I'll just read it really quickly. Of
course, please do.
It says, and this I think will give a really good sense of what's inside the book. All ye beneath life's crushing load, whose forms are bending low, who toil along the climbing way with painful steps and slow. Look now, for glad and golden hours come swiftly on the wing. Oh, rest beside the weary road and hear the angels sing.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I know, it's so beautiful, and I just feel like it expresses the tension between, the toiling along the climbing way, all the burdens of life and how hard life is, but it invites people into the observance of Christmas, not as one more thing you have to do at the end of a hard year, but as a resting place. A resting place,
it's a place of hope, I know.
Yes, and we're always talking in our church about working from a place of rest, working from a place of acceptance and God's delight in us, and not feeling like we have to do things to earn acceptance or favor or prove anything, but just out of love. And so that's really what the heart of this book is.
Well, I love it. Okay, so I want them to understand there are pictures and recipes and traditions and stories, and oh my goodness, the illustrations I just want to cut out. I want one book just to cut out so that I can put all the beautiful pictures in different places.
We had way too much fun making this book. Way too much fun. And actually Jennifer has made some prints of some of the artwork in the book.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
And can they order those? We'll tell them later
Oh,
where
yeah,
they can.
yeah.
Okay, they are gorgeous. They would be framables that you would absolutely look at again and again and again and take a breath of peace.
Yeah.
So tell me, I'm pushing you on this because since we all have just been for 3 days in a conference, we're trying to talk with you while our adrenaline is high, but it's exciting me just to talk about it. So tell me, what is kind of a favorite story that sometimes you all share about, I mean, you have one and you have one, about when you came to this whole area of traditions and beauty and goodness, and what are either your favorite stories, your favorite recipe, or some of your favorite aspects of the book, or all three?
Well, I'll jump in and start with that. One of the main themes of the book is that, I mean, it's, I talk a lot about tradition in this book, and Christmas traditions and family traditions and forming traditions, keeping traditions, and how sometimes when life gets really hard, we realize that our traditions are keeping us. We're not so much keeping them. But I really try to get the point across that traditions serve relationships rather than the other way around, that they're not something that's meant to be imposed, because that becomes a burden rather than, a joy. And a lot of people are really turned off by tradition for that very reason. But, tradition ought to be an embodiment of a reality that's already active and present, But anyway, so one of my favorite stories in the book, and one of my favorite stories just in general that I feel articulates this in my life, one of our very, very favorite Christmas traditions, my husband Philip and me, every Christmas Eve, we host a big Christmas Eve brunch at our house. And we live in the house that my husband grew up in. It's an old plantation plain Georgia farmhouse. But
I'm telling you, this is the most gorgeous house.
Oh,
it's just got a beautiful little, I don't even know what you'd say, treasures at every single point. And I visited you once when the leaves were all turning.
yeah, it was in November.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, it was so
my favorite
gorgeous. So picture yourself in a place where the wind is slightly blowing and the leaves are rustling, and you're just cold enough that you can't wait to go inside and eat or drink something that Lanier has made.
And sit by the fire.
And sit by the fire and be friends. And I was so happy to be in a place where our relationship deepened just because you had taken time to prepare. But anyway, go ahead. You may tell your story.
Well, so this, and a side note, this house is very much a character in the book, very much. But as readers will see. But anyway, we host this Christmas Eve brunch. So Philip's parents and their best friends, Luther and Carol, years ago, when Philip's brothers and Luther and Carol's children were small, they started meeting on Christmas Eve at each other's houses. They would take turns. And then anyway, over the years, people moved in different directions. And Philip and I realized that our house was central. We were kind of an hour from everybody. And so we kind of reinstituted the tradition of the Christmas Eve brunch. I go all out.
Yes, you do.
I do. I iron napkins for everybody. I mean, even the little 3-year-old girl gets her iron napkin, and I put out the best dishes. And the menu is really easy because, again, tradition, everybody brings the same thing. I have 2 dishes that I make, and then everybody else brings.
So quickly, what dishes do you make?
Oh, I make these very decadent cinnamon caramel rolls. And the recipe's in the book, but they're really good. And then I also make, I just do sausage, and I've started making my mother-in-law's coconut cake, which she was famous for. What else? I think that's all that I make on Christmas Eve. And I do the drinks.
You do everything else, yeah.
But anyway, so I set tables all over the house and just really go out with decorating. And I have all these little games and traditions that we do for the children. And one of them is, and I don't know if you did this when you were a child, Sally, but we always used to take oranges and navel oranges and cut a hole and put a soft peppermint stick in
yeah.
and like drink the orange juice. And I tried that out on the kids one year, and for whatever reason, they just absolutely loved it. So I do that with them every year. We do
Even
it.
if they can't get any juice out of it, they're
Even
sucking
yeah,
it to
and they're
death.
all like have orange juice all over their chins, and it's just they love it. But and we do like a flaming pudding. I mean, it's just so fun. And then the kids all go out and play in the yard. They run down to the barn. They go up in the attic and get dress up clothes. Like it's just an all day affair, and I love it so much. Well, the year
You all kind of belong to each other, don't you?
we
after
do,
all these years.
yes, they're our family. I mean, they really this family and their kids and great like we are really family. And so it's really really special. But in 2017, Philip and I had a pretty catastrophic house fire, and our house did not burn to the ground, but it was very, very seriously damaged to the point that we had to move out into an RV in our backyard for a year while our house is being restored. I talk about this in the book too, but one of the hardest things was Christmas because all of these things that embodied, my relationships and my love of the season, and I couldn't do them. I mean,
I just want to say that being hospitable, taking care of people, generously providing for people, cooking for people is the joy of your life. So that had to
it
be
truly is.
so heartbreaking. I remember when it happened. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember how you comforted me. I was like, I have notes in my Bible to this day that from a phone call with you, but. After that, but anyway, I was really, the thing that I grieved the most that Christmas was not being able to host the Christmas Eve brunch, and I was secretly afraid that the children would think of something else that they wanted to do, that something would come in that would, kind of would take the place and that tradition would die. And I realized, if that is the case, I have to let that happen. You have to, it's a delicate balance. But anyway, we got through Christmas and it was very different. And the day after Christmas, one of my friends of this family called me and said, "Hey, my kids really want to come to your house. Like they are so sad that that it just didn't feel like Christmas to them, that they weren't able to come to your house. And can we just come?" And I was like, well, absolutely. And I ran to the grocery store, and this is the day after Christmas. Like all the Christmas cookies are gone.
Yeah.
Which is another gripe I have with our modern world. but I got some like little butter cookies, and I got some apple cider, and I had some oranges, I think, back at the camper. And so ran back home, and they came, and the children played in the yard. They went to the barn. They played with the animals. They took walks. They played football. They took a tour of, we're just starting the restoration of the house, and they had so much fun. And I realized, at one point, one of the little girls came up to me and somebody had sent me a little box of, Lancia Smith had sent me a little box
really?
of soft peppermint sticks for Christmas.
Oh, my.
And I put them out, and one of the little girls said, "Miss Lanier, do you have an orange?" And I was like, I'll find you one. But the thing that struck me so poignantly that day is the kids did not care about all the stuff. They just wanted to be together. And I thought that I was so wise in all these things, and it was so humbling to see their simplicity, and to realize that this tradition that we had kept all these years was a container for these precious relationships, and that was all that mattered.
I love that story. You all know our kids, and one time the boys both came home, one from California and one from Boston, and they both said, "Oh, I can't wait to come home." And I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And we called feasting if you just ate, and it could be crackers, but they said we miss feasting and being together and talking at the table. If we can just do that. And I think sometimes we make things too hard.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It's the cultivating, kind of like this weekend. It's the cultivating of the deep friendships that we all long for. So now your turn. I can't wait to hear.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has all reminded me of a story from my childhood, and then I'm going to talk about the book itself. But I was the one in my family who loved traditions, and I really, really clung to traditions. And one of them was the Christmas tree. For me, in my mind growing up, there was a very specific way that this needed to happen in our family. And then it needed to be, because I loved it, it needs to be repeated every year, you know.
Did your mom start it out?
I don't know who started, but, you know, we kind of fell into a certain rhythm. And for me, it involved putting on the Karen Carpenter Christmas record. And then there was a couple of others it had to be that. There was an order in which things were done. There were specific ornaments that had to be brought out with ceremony, and this same sort of stories or exclamations being made about them. I had my favorites. It was something that we did together. And maybe I had a couple of memories of, you know, favorite examples of that from the past. And I just loved that night.
Well, it evidently met a deep need in you when they first started it.
Yeah. So there was one particular year, and when I was a teenager, our family went through an incredibly busy couple of years. We were taking in a foster child. It was so much going on. And my mom was in school. I mean, it was just, you know, our family was a family of teenagers. And this particular year, the Christmas tree never got finished.
Oh, no.
I think the particular night, there was a argument with my brother and somebody.
As happens with teenagers.
Oh, yeah, and everybody was busy, and it got half put up and then didn't, and I was so upset.
Oh.
And I feel bad about that. I was into writing poetry about that time, and I wrote the most sentimental, melodramatic poem about the day the Christmas tree didn't get finished. And all I remember is that it ended with, togetherness will pass too soon, and we will wish we'd finished that one Christmas tree. And then I left the paper on my parents' bed and didn't say anything about it. And I just let them find it. And they have never let me live this down because it made them
thought
feel
it was a great
so
point.
guilty.
I have never heard that story.
That's a great story.
They felt so guilty. So
Well
guilty.
done, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
They've never let me live it down.
Sometimes guilt is usable.
So then, of course, they never let a Christmas go by without doing the Christmas tree. But of course, now as an adult, I look back and, you know, it wasn't about the tree.
No.
It wasn't about the Karen Carpenter record or those particular ornaments. Looking back now, I'm realizing that I was just, to me, those things were little signs of a certain, relational mood in our family that I was longing for, and I wanted us to be together. And we were going through a very scattered time. And so clearly what I was longing for was that sense of closeness again, that this symbolized. You know, it wasn't about the tradition. It was what the tradition signified to me.
And maybe you wanted to feel close to your loved ones, and you had felt it before, and you weren't feeling it.
In that particular year, we weren't
feeling it. But I mean, that's important for us to stop life long enough to look into the eyes of our people and say, what is going on there? Because that was very significant, I think.
It was significant.
I felt the same way before.
But I do feel bad that I made them feel so guilty. So then fast forward to a couple of years ago when I visited Lanier, and I was coming during a very hard time for me, and I think she invited me to help her make Christmas cookies. I needed a couple of days, and she said, well, if you want to help me make Christmas cookies, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I drove down, and I remember especially sitting there while she was making the caramels. I want to caramel.
Yeah.
I mean, we had made Christmas cookies.
They're pretty good.
And I am not a good cook or baker. I'm a reasonably good helper if I can stay focused. But if I'm talking, I will not stay focused. And Lanier has learned this about me. So anyway, she was making the caramel and standing at the stove, talking about what the candy making meant to her. You know, and the fact that she sets aside an entire day just to stand at the stove and stir the caramel, and then we started talking about her other traditions and the fact that she irons napkins for her dinner party.
I know, I am very impressed with that. I have a bunch of wrinkled napkins in a chest of drawers that I never get to.
I've never even considered ironing any napkin. But then she told me why. like that it was for her a ritual in which as she ironed each napkin, she prayed for the person who was going to be sitting at that place at her table that night at this party. And it was a sacrament of something else. And like, I just remember thinking with, with the napkins and the caramels and many things that Lanier, she's so good at all these traditions, but it's not about the cooking of the caramel. It's not about you have to have the perfectly ironed napkin. It's just like that the Christmas tree was for me. It's a little window through which we get to see something else. And,
I love that.
And so, like, my favorite sections of the book are still the one on caramel making.
Oh, really?
And the one on the feasting with friends where you're preparing. Especially, I think the caramel is my favorite. But it's because it's not about the caramel.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's like your story.
Caramel.
It's like it's being together.
Yeah, and for her, like, and I putting words in your mouth. I should just let you talk. But like, that's a day when you stop in all of the busyness of the season and all the craziness, and you've said, I'm going to take this day and I'm going to stir caramel. And I'm going to stand at my stove and I'm going to rest. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to pray. I'm going to prepare my heart for the season ahead. And the caramel becomes like an excuse to do that. A symbol.
It's a
of
tool.
that.
It's an instrument
It's
that can be used to cultivate those memories and relationships.
Yeah, and we need. I think God made us so that we need the caramel.
Yeah,
Like, that's like
he made sugar after all.
Like, we're not
And
naturally going to stop and rest unless there's a physical reason sometimes. And so, like, he gave us the gift of caramel because it takes a long time and you have to stand at the stove and
be friends and talk. Well, I love that. And I have thought a lot, especially when I was reading the book, because I've thought a lot about it just in the past few years. Why did God create all the feasts for Israel? They were supposed to stop their busy lives. They were supposed to put time aside, make special food, do certain things. And he was always about remembering. Yeah. Remember when the Lord your God provided. Remember this and that and the other. And I think that if we don't, as a culture, have points where we stop, anchors, so to speak, in our year, where we stop and put the anchor down and say, this is a time for me to get perspective in my life, to remember what God has done, to remember what my life is about, to remember the people I love. And I think that God was a God of feasts because he knew that we would forget. We would forget the value, the priorities, the lessons, the things that were really going to give life to our soul. And that's what I love about this book that you all did. And talk just a little bit about, people throw this word around all the time, but what is a sacrament and why are the traditions that it can be any tradition? You can do your Swedish, your Dutch, your Austrian, your English, your, Asian, whatever it is. But the traditions themselves are created for our hearts and for our relationships. So what does sacrament mean, and why are these special, unique traditions that we do ourselves so important?
Well, God knows that we forget, but he also knows that we are very physical, tactile beings. We need taste and
he
touch
made us to need to eat.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We get hungry. But I feel like the simplest way to define sacramental living or sacramental worldview, sacramental acts, is that you are making visible something that's invisible. Like you're giving physical form to something that is unseen. And it is, and the only thing that accomplishes that is your intention. It's so simple. And I there's a quote from G.M. Hopkins that I love so much. He's my favorite poet.
Gerard Manley Hopkins.
Yes.
I love that you know all of his poetry.
He's my favorite. I love him so much. But it's actually not from one of his poems. It's from a letter. I think it was to his friend Robert Bridges, but I'm not exactly sure. But in this letter, he says that God is so great that all things give him glory if we mean that they should. Like if our heart is like, Lord, I'm lifting this to you. I'm doing this to embody something that is true. And so that's what we mean when
It's
we
so
talk
true.
about.
It's from the heart. Yeah.
And, Jennifer and I actually talked about this in our Hutchmoot session yesterday that, I was making the point that these little lesser daily sacraments, or even the just kind of the sacramental mindset of the why behind the wherefore of all of our holiday preparations, like it's shepherding us towards something greater, of course, like the Eucharist, like the Lord's Supper, like
So
our
beautiful.
whatever rituals of our Christian tradition. But Jennifer pointed out that it works in the opposite direction as well, like the Lord's Supper and the Eucharist and the sacraments, like prepare us for our ordinary life and to come to that, brushing our teeth and making the sandwich, with a sense of it's all holy.
It is all holy. Well, I was really touched this year when I was writing Well Lived, because Nathan and Keelia had, this is going to make sense, they hadn't been with us for the 2 years that we were overseas, because it was hard to get visas, and so I said, I'm going to fly through New York on the way home, and they got us tickets to Funny Girl. And I thought, oh, this can't be that good, because I liked Barbra Streisand. And when Barbra Streisand did it, she did it with her whole heart. And but I saw Leah Michelle. It was her last performance. And they had gotten me seats up front. They were in the back. And as she got onto the stage, she was in it for her whole heart. I mean, she was singing and acting, and she was dramatic, and she ran across the stage. I mean, she was showing everybody else up, of course. But I was thinking about, it was like the Holy Spirit said, this is what it means with your whole heart. It doesn't almost even matter what the tradition is. It's like you wanted to decorate that tree with your whole heart, And I have thought a lot that we need to picture what it means to love God with our whole heart. And that's what you're saying, that if we do something sacramental with our heart, with a heart of love, with a heart of devotion, this is for you, God. And we can do that. I love this book because it points out it's every day, every word you give, every action that you have with your whole heart. So beautiful.
What is the poem that says it's somebody who's a woman who sweeps the floor with her whole heart, glorifying God, makes that and the action pure. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I have heard that before. Yeah.
That's a theme that goes back in church history a long way. That like if whatever we are doing, no matter how tedious and ordinary, if we're doing it to the glory of God and with thankfulness in our heart, it becomes a holy act in that moment.
I think that's beautiful. That's so true. Well, we are getting toward the end of our time together. I know all of you who are out there want me to do this even longer. They want me to do it, for 2 or 3 hours. But what would you all hope that people who are listening would glean from your book? Because I feel like, I don't know about you, but it's so rare that I see beautiful books anymore. And I feel like even when I sat down and looked at this book and read like the first page, the verse I'd never heard it came upon a midnight clear. There's sometimes that we just need beauty and dimension to fill our souls. Our souls long for pictures. They long for tastes. They long for sounds and smells, as you were saying a minute ago. So as you were picking and choosing what you put in here, what is your hope that when people looked at this book and read it and maybe passed it on for other generations, what is your ultimate hope in this busy, crazy world that this book going into the world would do for the people who would have the privilege of having it?
Well, the subtitle, as I've already mentioned, is a companion for Advent and Christmastide, and there are two hopes embedded in that little phrase. And when we were creating this book, my my editor and publisher, Pete Peterson, we really went back and forth on that word companion, because he kept saying, I think there's just this doesn't quite say it, because it almost makes it could make it sound like a manual, and it's not a manual. It is not a how-to. It is not a cookbook.
Every
it is
page.
not it's very much a story, with ways to embody the themes of the book through recipes and crafts and traditions and different things. But companion just felt like the right word, because I said, I want this book to be a friend. I want people to find a friend in this book. I want it to like be an arm around the shoulder that says, hey, if you haven't had a life behind you of happy Christmas traditions, or if Christmas is overwhelming to you, or if you're sad for some reason, or living in a desert of unfulfilled hope, or broken home, or your life just doesn't look the way that you thought it would, that you would find a friend here that could just kind of say, well, here's some things that God has shown me in some of the dark places, and then the flip side of that is, the Advent and Christmastide. I didn't want to write just an Advent book, and I didn't want to write just a Christmas book. I wanted the whole picture, because we need both. Advent traditionally has been a season of preparation for Christmas. It's been a season of penitence at times. And Advent is the place where we live. Like it is the place for the waiting. It is the place that we are able to acknowledge this, things are not the way that they ought to be.
Yeah.
and it's the waiting, for our Lord to appear in our circumstances, in our life, and to return, and so it is the place for our grief. But Christmas traditionally has been a 12-day feast, and that's something that we have lost.
It's so true.
And
to take time
to actually celebrate the stupendous fact that God has become one of us, and that it's not just like this mad rush to get it all done in a night and a day and then move on to the next thing.
And plus, for it to sink into our children, into our souls,
Yes.
it takes time to soak in it.
And to enjoy it, and if it's all in a rush, it's gone, and you're like, what was that all about? But if Advent is the place for our grief, Christmas is the place for our joy, and we need both in life. And I just really wanted to invite people into an experience of joy.
I absolutely love that.
Can I tell you something quick that somebody just said to me at Hutchmoot? Just today, at the end of our conference, somebody came up and said she was halfway through the book, and she said, I knew this was going to be a beautiful book about holiday traditions and Christmas and all that stuff, but she said, this is a book for the brokenhearted.
Oh, I think it is.
I
think most of
goodness,
us have reason to be brokenhearted at this time.
Yes,
oh my goodness.
Yes, and she's going to give it to 4 of her friends because of that, who she knows need it. And I think it's so true that this is, it's so easy to be happy, joy about the season.
Yeah.
And so many people enter Christmas brokenhearted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you, I think, do such a beautiful job of making that space for grief and sadness in the midst of the joy and the waiting of Advent.
I can't tell you. I mean, this is just a gift of a book. To me, I have millions of books in my home, but this is going to go in a special place on my shelf. But I also just wanted to, because you have the messages, you have the recipes, you have the traditions, but I can't even believe, Jennifer, that you did this. I mean, there are. I mean, it has all of these things going for it, and then to see the lettering, to see the stories, to see the recipes, the art, the beauty. You could just. It's almost like you could take just a couple of these pages and do a quiet time just.
Oh, it's a feast
from them.
I know,
It's just absolutely amazing. But how in the world did you think through how to do all of these different renderings?
Well, that's a fun part of the whole collaborative process. But so one of the things, Sally, you talked about Lanier's beautiful home, and it is very beautiful. But like, it's not just beautiful.
No.
It is
It kind of
such a
embraces you.
Yes, it's such a welcoming, warm haven of a place. And Lanier's kitchen table beside the fire in her kitchen, is one of, I think, the most peaceful, restful, grounded places, I've ever been. And
So true. It's very true.
And in the book, I think that she does such a beautiful job of welcoming people into her story, so that it really does feel like a companion and a friendship. And so when I was illustrating it, what I was trying to do very, very deliberately was to reflect her house, her home, and make it feel like visually you are being welcomed into Lanier's home. And so we did that by doing a lot of sharing of photographs and through visits. So when I would visit, I would take some photographs. We started a Pinterest board so that Lanier could dump lots. She's a beautiful photographer. If you follow her,
oh my goodness,
dump so many beautiful pictures that I used as reference photos. So the majority of the illustrations in the book are based on things in her house and little vignettes that she puts together, and her house is on the cover. So I really wanted to make it feel like it's my version of her house, but it's that's the rough house.
It is. It is.
So that was a lot of it. Was me trying to reflect as much as possible Lanier's own sense of hospitality and beauty in the way that she invites people into her home. And she helped me, like we talked about colors early on.
It was really fun.
When I put together a palette of colors, I ran it by her to make sure that I think that some of her wallpaper ended up. I based some of the designs off her wallpaper. So she had so much to do with the inspiration for the art, and a lot of that came out of the collaboration between the two of us. That was really fun.
I love how well you all have collaborated. It's amazing. And when I was at your house, I kind of would not come see you because I was stuck in the hallway or stuck in the bedroom or stuck in the bathroom. I mean, the photographs and the words and the I was jealous of how well you were able to articulate the life-giving home. I'm teasing. But these two women, I think, in their beautiful friendship, got along, focused on this, made this beautiful project. Just the story of their friendship and collaboration, as well as the book, is something that I know that you will really, really enjoy. So thank you all on this very tiring. We all kind of dragged in from adrenaline being on the ground. Yeah, and I think that because this book is so fun, we had the energy to do it. So tell me quickly where they can find either one of you all, and where they can find the book.
Well, you can find. Okay, so you can find me. At my website is my name, lanierivester.com.
Can you spell that?
LANIERIVESTER.com. And I'm also Lanier Ivester, same spelling, on Instagram. We also have a Glad and Golden Hours Instagram account. And we have a Glad and Golden. It's gladandgolden.com.
Gladandgolden.com is the website.
Let me just tell you about this website. Jennifer has done everything, and it is amazing. There are downloads. Like we have some of the crafts in the book have templates, and you can download them on the website. She's just got so many resources on there. It's amazing. But you can order the book. There's a link there that will take you to the Rabbit Room store, where you can order the book. You can get it directly from the Rabbit Room. You can also get it on Amazon. And sign up for our newsletter. Yes, we don't try not to bombard people, of course, but we do like to send out a friendly note every couple of weeks, because we do have a lot of fun things that we're doing that are coming up. We're going to be doing a book discussion.
If you'd like to go through this book, like through Advent with this book, together with a group of people, where we're going to facilitate that.
Oh, I can't wait.
We've had like a little online tea. Sorry, that's already come and gone, but we will. We might do something else like that. But there's just we have a lot of fun little things coming up in our newsletter too. So you can sign up for that at gladandgolden.com.
Yes,
great.
And I'm jennifertrafton.com. So Jennifer is JENNIFERTRAFTON.com. And I'm on Instagram at jtraftonart. So that is my Instagram handle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for doing this.
Sally.
We knew we didn't have enough time, and we made the time.
We did. Yes, sure.
Because I
did.
know it will minister and encourage many people. And you'll probably drip your cookie dough in it at some point.
hope
and,
so.
And your children will come back and say, "Do you remember this is when Mom made the carrots?" So let me just pray for everybody. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for all of the precious ones who are listening to this. And I pray that your Spirit would give them a desire to take the time to express love and gratitude and worship to you and to their precious ones through the beauty that they take time to make and the moments of just relationship that they take time to enjoy because of the ideas that they read and glean in this book. But most of all, I just pray that you would bless them, encourage them, give them a sense of hope and love from the wonderful message that we all are so grateful to have here at the Advent season and the hope that Christ brings to our lives. We give you this time and give you our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I hope you've enjoyed our time together today and that you'll join me next week. Be sure to look for more inspiration on my blog at sallyclarkson.com. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.